Yeah, their next best is but it's
It's not even worth it. Hi.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Nice to see you.
You want this, Josh?
I'll keep it.
Okay.
I was not even. I was not. I guess I think I'm flattered that when the email bounced, you took the time to screenshot it and print it out and mail it.
I mean, he really wanted you to hear what he had.
How's your mother?
She's fine. She's like, I want to say you should see the other guy. You know, she's like,
Did she fall? Oh,
I don't know if you heard. On the subject of seeing the other guy, you know Rachel Loon?
yeah.
So Rachel called me this afternoon. Body checked him. I mean, he ended up like knocking her over and continuing to run away, and then the police they got him. But like she was just so thrilled that her first like instinct was like, no, I'm gonna get this guy's face. So yeah.
Good evening, everybody. I have 7:30, so I'm going to call this council meeting to order. I would ask that everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
of the United States of America and and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, if you could call the roll, members, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Ballantyne. Ms. Gregg. Ms. Diaz. Mr. Prepara.
Here.
Mr. Smith-Waddell.
Here.
Mr. Soto.
Here.
And President Reichenbach.
Here. Councilors Diaz and Craig are excused for this evening. Move on to the approval of the minutes for the September 10th, 2019 meeting.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council comments from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ballantyne.
Aye.
Mr. Prepara.
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Move on to proclamations, honors, awards, and resolutions of recognition. Something exciting that we've started to make a habit of, which is great. September Neighbor of the Month. Mayor, take it away.
Thank you, President Reichenbach. Unfortunately, Ricardo is not here, so I will honor him in absentia, and we can pass this along to him. So Ricardo lives at 2 on East Orange Street, and with help from his neighbors, he's adopted the 200 block of East Orange and has helped keep the area clean and free of litter and trash. In addition, as an openly gay man, he chose his Adopt a Block plaque to say LGBT neighbors and allies with the goal of promoting LGBT engagement in the heart of Lancaster. He has been working diligently to build relationships with residents and leaders to promote community engagement in both the LGBT and Latino communities through frequent meetings, workshops, and training as part of his work at CASA, a social justice organization based in the Latino and immigrant community. And so he was nominated and is being recognized as the Neighbor of the Month and will receive some downtown dollars that were donated to the city for the purposes of our Neighbor of the Month initiative. So there you have it, and we'll pass this along.
Terrific. Thank you, Mayor. And you'll be sure that he gets the downtown dollars and they don't just stay.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will
Just
be
kidding,
sure of
Mayor.
that.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for doing that. I think it's very exciting for our neighbors to be recognized that way. We'll move on to our first public comment period. That's reserved for residents who have contacted the city clerk prior to the meeting to request the opportunity to address city council. I would ask that you limit the duration of your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Harris, do we have anyone who called ahead this evening?
Yes, we do, Mr. President. We have Sydney Brookmeyer.
Terrific. Good evening, ma'am. If you could just share your name and your street and
Sure.
limit your comments to 3 minutes if you could.
My name is Sydney Brookmeyer, P.O. Box 481, Lancaster, PA 17608. I do have some copies of an email
Sure.
that I wanted to
Absolutely.
share.
Yes, you can pass them
Should
up
I-
here. Certainly will. Thank you.
This is Ricardo.
Oh,
Well,
do you
no,
want-
no, no,
I don't
no.
mind
No, no,
going.
No, ma'am.
Give him a round of applause.
We will certainly get, no, it's okay.
No, no, no.
Ma'am,
Back, I don't mind at all.
ma'am, it's okay. You can go ahead and make your statement. We will certainly get to him shortly. Go right ahead, ma'am.
This summer, Jake Thorson and L Hop sponsored an informative event highlighting best practices for property owners who provide rental housing in Lancaster City. The guest speaker was a local magisterial district justice. When he completed his presentation, he took questions from the owners who attended. His reaction to my question prompted me to come to City Council tonight. In April 2018, I attended my first housing inspection. The housing inspector arrived and instructed the property owner that another city employee would be coming on the inspection. While we awaited his arrival, the housing inspector informed the owner that he required the following information for each tenant in the building: their name, their address, and their lease renewal date. The owner turned to me for the information. I looked at the housing inspector and at the yellow pad on which he was prepared to record my answers, and I got an uneasy feeling. If the city really did require this information, I would have expected he would have had a form on city letterhead. I replied that I did not have accurate lease renewal dates at my disposal. He replied an estimate was okay. 75% of the tenants who reside in this building were clients of Church World Service. They have endured the death of family members and threats against their safety. We had the privilege of partnering with Church World Service to provide a safe, clean place for these individuals to begin a new life, find a new normal. I was not about to give the city employee their personal information without being sure the city would be the recipient of the information. We requested that one resident from each unit be present at this inspection. They were new to the country, and it was a little unsettling when we informed them that someone would be coming into their home. So we wanted them to be present to follow the inspector, ask questions, and calm their fears. The inspector had the opportunity to ask the tenants in each unit personally for the information that he asked of the owner, but he did not take advantage of that chance. I followed up with the inspector by email on April 16th, as you can see. I notified him that we would require the request for personal information by email or have a signed release from each tenant to provide him with the information he claimed to need. He has never followed up on his request. The administration was copied on this email, and I was waiting patiently for someone to contact the property owner to speak to him and myself about this troubling incident. The incident was also reported to my contact at Church World Service, who had not been informed that the city was collecting this information. So I am left with the following questions. If I had naively released the information to the housing inspector, who requested it and who is to be the end recipient? The housing inspector did not ask the tenants directly for the information, even though he witnessed us talking to them. Why not? Why try to deceive the owner into releasing this information? Lancaster has recently been designated a welcoming city. Please support my tenants by investigating this attempt at an unreasonable seizure of their personal information. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Harris, do we have anyone else who called ahead?
No, we do not, Mr. President.
Thank you. Before we go any further, I certainly want to take a step back because, Mayor,
Yes.
I think we now have a neighbor of the month in the audience, and I see the smile back there. So
Ricardo, come on.
come up. So take two, Mayor.
Take two. So Ricardo is being recognized for his work on the 200 block of East Orange Street, and I'm doing this without my notes now. And instead of having his name on the adopted block sign, it was LGBTQ friends and allies to identify a welcoming community for all people and recognizing your work in the CASA community as well as the Latino community and the LGBT community. You were nominated for Neighbor of the Month. So thank you again. Here you go.
Congratulations.
And you might also see Ricardo in his role at the Lancaster Community Alliance, or Lancaster City Alliance.
That's it. Would you like to say a couple words, please, if you...
Okay. Hi, thank you. Again, my name is Ricardo Almodovar. I am from Lancaster City originally, and I just moved back to Lancaster about 5 months ago. And I have just received such an overwhelming amount of love, of community, not just working at CASA, Pennsylvania, but also at the Lancaster City Alliance. And, I just want to be able to do my part, especially in a community that has raised me, housed me, and educated me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. So we will move to reports requested by council. I don't believe we have any, Mr. Harris.
Update on the committee meeting prior.
Yeah, we're just going right after that.
No, we do not have any reports requested by council.
Got it. Okay. Moving to interim reports of committees of council. The Economic Development Committee met today. Councilor Smith-Wadoff, if you wouldn't mind taking that.
Thank you. Chairwoman Faith Craig could not attend the economic development meeting that we had earlier this evening at 6:30, but we met to discuss Administration Resolution Number 52, 2019, which would serve to reduce the boundaries of the tax increment financing district. And we'll talk about that a little more when we get there. But we met this evening so that this could be on this evening's agenda. And it really is, I think, probably the most mature and functional approach to this where we are now. And we'll come to that in just a few minutes, I believe. That's all.
Thank you. Move into the legislative agenda for resolutions, both of which will be voted on this evening. Administration Resolution Number 51, 2019, adopting the Municipal Operations Climate Action Plan for the City of Lancaster. Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster accepting and adopting the City of Lancaster Municipal Operations Climate Action Plan, affirming the importance of mitigating climate change and the importance of the plan as a guiding document for municipal operations.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Councilor Smith-Waddell.
Hey, thank you. So this has been a long time coming, and following up on some very important commitments that the city has made and will continue to make. And then as he's coming up to present it to us, first I want to say that I see a couple of our community partners in the audience, and thank you to you guys for being here. But I do want to give a special shout out to Douglas Thomas for his tireless work, both within the administration and within the community on this item and in general. Douglas, please. Also, for what it's worth, is the presentation that you made at the Ware Center still available on the city website?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, it is.
Yeah, I cannot recommend it more if anybody has a moment to go to the city website and watch the presentation that Douglas made there a few months back. He really lays out all of the issues and challenges facing us as a community and what we can do about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Yeah, do you mind? Going to distribute the hard copies of the plan here for you, which is a very exciting moment for us. Good evening, City Council and Mayor, and to all those in the room. I noticed how light the agenda was tonight. I just want to say thank you for clearing your schedule for this. It'll only be a couple hours here. But seriously.
Thank you for your time. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding, Douglas. Go right ahead.
I'm here to present the city's Municipal Operations Climate Action Plan. This document outlines the goals and strategies for addressing the city's greenhouse gas emissions and anticipated impacts from climate change to city services. I want to thank you for your consideration of this important initiative, especially in the midst of various national and international efforts to compel leaders around the world to take immediate action on climate change. We are in the midst of the International Climate Strike and the New York City Climate Week. Climate protesters are active around the world and in our nation's capital today. And yesterday, Greta Thunberg, a 16-year-old climate activist from Sweden, got to address world leaders at the UN Climate Summit and spoke a painful truth to them about climate change. And I want to read you a brief quote from her speech yesterday. "The young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you, and if you choose to fail us, I say, we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up and change is coming, whether you like it or not." These are stirring words, and I share them with you not to make you uncomfortable or cast accusations, but to remind us all of the painful reality of climate change that we are all complicit in. Even those of us who are advocating for change are still not doing enough. And that's a tough pill for all of us to swallow. And although this plan before you is not a silver bullet, nor is it close to perfect, it gives me hope that we are here having this conversation right now. I am very proud of City of Lancaster's efforts. In fact, I think that we are the first third-class city in Pennsylvania to even have a municipal climate action plan, which is a proud moment for us. And with that, I'd like to explain the details of this plan to you before you consider it for adoption as a guiding policy document for the city. So a brief reminder of why we are even talking about this. We are already seeing the impacts of climate change right now in Lancaster. Lancaster is getting wetter. This graph is compiled using weather data from Millersville University's weather station. The dotted gray line is the average cumulative monthly precipitation totals for 1914 to 2018, so a 100-year average. By the end of the year, we would typically have around 43 inches of rain, and in 2018, you can see we had over 60. The blue line shows the monthly precipitation totals for 2018, which was declared the wettest year on record by meteorologist Eric Horst. This next graph shows that Lancaster is also getting warmer. This graph was also compiled using data from Millersville University weather station. The graph represents each year's summer average temperature deviation from a typical summer. As you can see, not only does the average temperature increase as the years progress, as shown by the trend line, but so too does the magnitude of warmer than normal summers. So the anomalous behavior is increasing over time. Increasing heat is a concern for so many reasons, among them increased energy cost, worsened air pollution, impaired water quality, and in some cases even death for those in our community who are most vulnerable, like the young and the elderly. Mayor Sirachi is one of the mayors who is committed to the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, as was Mayor Gray. The leaders who have signed this covenant represent 600 million people around the world, and it's the largest coalition of cities addressing climate change. With the dearth of climate action at the federal and state levels, it is really the cities who are leading this charge, and we are among them. This prompted you, City Council, to sign a commitment of the goals to the Paris Climate Agreement. But the city's environmental efforts have been going on for quite some time. In the plan, there's a timeline that shows some of the city's climate actions going back to 1993, when we first started to address environmental protection in our comprehensive plan. From there, we started to require additional trees, started to limit lot coverage, and regulate stormwater. In 2017, the city committed to the Paris Climate Accord, and in 2018, the City of Lancaster was among the first communities in the world to be recognized as a gold certified community under Lead for Cities, a program of the U.S. Green Building Council. And in 2019, the Climate Action Plan was completed, actually only as of last Wednesday. This plan, though, would not have been possible without many community partners. And the ones on this screen here, I really want to take a moment to recognize. First, Partners for Places is our national grantor. They provided matching dollars for all of the local money that we were able to provide them. It was a competitive process, and I think we were very lucky to be chosen among the group. Next, I want to recognize Lancaster County Community Foundation. Really, if it were not for Lancaster County Community Foundation, this whole process could not have started. They provided the seed money. We needed matching dollars to even apply for Partners for Places. And we approached them and had a conversation with what we wanted to accomplish, and they were encouraging of that. And there was still a gap, though, that we needed to fill, and LCSWMA, Lancaster County Solid Waste Management Authority, and the Steinman Foundation stepped in to fill that funding gap for us. And I also want to take a moment to recognize Millersville University, too. They've supported this plan in a number of ways. One of them is through technical advice on this plan. Chris Stoyer, the sustainability director for the college, has been intimately involved in this and has really strengthened the technical aspects of this document. I also want to say that LACSWAMA also provided a lot of expertise and time through Justin Kapotz, their energy manager, who's here tonight, and again, provided a lot of good technical expertise on this document. It's worth mentioning a couple other people here. Our former Director of Public Works, Charlotte Katzenmoyer, was very supportive of these efforts when I was working in the Department of Public Works, and she was the one that made the connection to the Lancaster County Community Foundation and initially sat down with them and advocated for this plan to be funded. So I also want to recognize her efforts in this too. With that, I'd like to ask any of those folks who represent these organizations to stand so we can recognize you for the contributions that you've provided. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Justin. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you don't mind, we'll advance to the next one. There was also a climate action committee that Mayor Sirachi assembled to help to advise this whole planning process. And I want to briefly run down some of these names. Not all these folks are here tonight, but it's worth mentioning that a lot of city staff participated in this too. Retired facilities manager Dave Schaffhauser, our current facilities manager Ryan Hunter, Larry Cohen, executive director of the Parking Authority, Barbara Wilson from the Housing Authority, Justin Kapotz from LACSWAMA, Chris Stoyer from Millersville, Megan Blackman from the city grants administrator, Ruth Hawker, our stormwater program manager, Bob Beanie from county planning, Jerry Lee Miller, also here in the room, right? Yay. Thank you, Jerry. From the Citizens Climate Lobby, Paula Jackson, our retired chief planner, Councilman Smith Waddell, myself, Randy Patterson, also retired, Christopher Delfs at the tail end of this process, but our new director for our community planning and economic development, and last but not least at all, Mayor Sirachi. And there's one, this is not a complete list, and one other person that I really want to lift up tonight is our wonderful planning intern, Ben Jennings. Ben, could you just stand for a moment while I tell people what you helped me with in this planning process? I really want to give Ben some gratitude this evening because really, if it weren't for him, I'm not sure I could have completed this plan. I mean, that really is how much he contributed to this. He assisted with the writing of some of this, endless editing and proofreading. He also did some of the research that went into this plan and organized 2 of the meetings that we had with community stakeholders, and has generally just provided a lot of support to me administratively in my position as senior planner, which has allowed me a little bit more time to work on this. So Ben, thank you so much for your efforts here. Some other staff I didn't mention, Chris Volke-Hilditch, Jim Reben, Donna Jessup, and other countless members of our staff helped pull together data for this plan. So a quick bit about the planning process. Now, while we started this in October 2018, the grant writing and some of the greenhouse gas inventory work actually started years before this. But I just want to let you know as council members that there was an engagement process throughout this document writing, initially starting with the committee, stakeholder interviews of staff, a couple of meetings with the committee. We did a community stakeholder meeting where we met with some of our largest community employers, including LGH and F&M and Millersville and others. And then a lot of research analysis and review, and finally writing and editing. And here we are as the final step. So the vision statement for this plan and this is really the guiding principle for this document. The City of Lancaster equitably implements innovative, collaborative, fiscally responsible strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and build resilience to the impacts of climate change. not too wordy for a vision statement, but I want to emphasize equitable and collaborative here. We know that not all infrastructure implementation is always equitably done in cities, and that's something that Lancaster should receive a lot of credit for paying attention to in this plan, and also for the collaborative nature of this effort and realizing that we need community partners to achieve this. So a quick look at our emissions and what we're trying to accomplish here. And I'll keep this brief because I think some of this you've seen before, but the crux of it is most of our emissions come from pumping wastewater and water, and especially the electricity that we use to do that. It takes a lot of energy to move all of that liquid around the city and beyond. So if we are to get to our emission goals in this plan, the electricity piece is a really heavy lift. Next on the list would be our wastewater treatment process. So as carbon material is digested at the plant, it releases various nitrates. Nitrous oxide is an extremely potent greenhouse gas that's released in that process that we really can't get rid of very easily. And then marginally, we have all of our buildings, our streetlights, traffic signals, parks, and our vehicle fleet. So even if all of our buildings went carbon neutral today, we would still only reduce our emissions by 9%. So here's the emissions reduction glide path. A word I learned today from Chris. Although it doesn't look so much like a glide as it does a steep sledding hill, which is really exciting, right? So over the next 5 years, this plan proposes that the city try to reduce its emissions by 80%. So that is the chunk of electricity that I was talking about. If all of the electricity can be sourced from renewable or green sources, then we would achieve an 80% reduction, which is a big feat. It's a bold goal, but it is doable, and it would be an incredible statement to the community about our commitment for climate change. From after that, the reductions are marginal, and actually the biggest reduction going from 2025 to 2050 is developing a carbon offset program that can offset some of the emissions that are hard to reduce. So those wastewater process emissions that I told you about. So carbon offsets can be done a number of ways: tree planting, no-till farming, something that sequesters carbon and truly offsets our emissions. The orange line on top is what would be the business as usual. If we were to do nothing, that is the efficiency we would gain through the grid over time, which is not adequate enough to mitigate climate change. So I don't want to belabor this too much, but I do want to mention in brief some of these strategies that help to get us there. Reducing our energy consumption in municipal buildings, generating on-site and off-site renewable energy, exploring electrification of buildings, so eliminating our natural gas, improving energy habits among building occupants so we can all turn off the lights when we leave tonight, improving our street light efficiency, and also making a commitment on future municipal buildings and making sure that they are as efficient as possible. Under transportation, we're looking at conducting a fleet analysis, increasing our low-carbon vehicles, expanding our employee bike share, and also doing an employee transportation demand management study. So, for instance, making sure that we're incentivizing that people walk and bike to work and live nearby and aren't taking long commutes. Underwater and wastewater, again, this is where the bulk of the work is, but we have strategies that include combined heat and power. So this could be taking some of the biosolids that we're producing from the plant, generating energy with them, using that heat to then power our plant even further, conducting water audits for our facilities, retrofitting facilities with efficient fixtures, reducing water consumption through improved landscape management, establishing a water reclamation and reuse program, and also, as I mentioned, reusing biosolids. On the stormwater front, we're already doing tremendous work, and all of the water that we mitigate from going into our combined sewer system ultimately does not have to be treated. So we're reducing the electricity that we're then using at the plant. So that too has benefits to these goals. Under the category of waste, again, this is a small piece of our emissions, but still important to achieve our goals. This is conducting a waste analysis for city buildings, composting food, adaptive reuse of city buildings, which we've been very good at in the past. Old City Hall, Southern Market, the fire station in New Holland, that's now a recycling center. Those are some examples. Reducing employee waste, reusing office equipment. And the last two categories, building a culture of sustainability. Part of that is having discussions like these right now. We should be dedicating even additional staff to addressing some of these climate efforts, and that means building some of these activities into existing job descriptions too. Establishing a green team, developing green meeting policies to prevent some travel, and also integrating sustainability into municipal processes, which could include budgeting, municipal budgeting for the city. And finally, climate-sensitive purchasing guidelines. The carbon offsets, as I mentioned, such as tree planting and no-till farming, really require broader community collaboration with the surrounding county area. So establishing responsibility internally, but also financing and pilot programs. So the benefits of doing this all are more than I could possibly articulate this evening. Some of those are listed here on the screen. One that I'd like to really call out, though, is the environmental justice issue, because climate change does affect those with the least the most. People around the world who do not have the means to move or respond to these climate impacts are at risk of being exposed to them the most. So in one sense, we have a duty to our immediate community to prevent climate impacts here, but by mitigating our emissions, we're ultimately helping people around the world. And small cities are in desperate need of new models for climate action. And this plan, I think, puts one model forth, at least for Pennsylvania, that other small cities can follow. It also produces jobs. So this chart came from the state's climate action plan, and the dotted line shows, I'm sorry, not just jobs, but personal income. The dotted line shows the increase in disposable personal income over time if the state's climate action plan were implemented. Now, we don't have a chart like this for the city's actions, but just to know that these energy policies actually do produce additional jobs, and in fact are estimated to put over $500 in each household's pocket every year. That's an increase in wealth across the state. But we can't do this alone. The community also is emitting a lot of emissions, and the city is only 4% of the total city emissions. So this really ultimately requires pushing these efforts out into the broader community and asking for their participation too. So that is really one of the next steps that we could be looking at as a city. And here you'll notice that transportation is a much bigger slice of the pie of emissions than it is for our city operations. And again, I mentioned partnering with the surrounding areas on carbon offsets. Interestingly, according to some of the latest research from Berkeley, California, the remaining emissions that we have that are required for offsets could be provided by the transition of about 6,000 acres of conventional farmland to no-till. We have many, many, many more acres than 6,000 in this county, and to think that that solution is sitting right outside our doorstep is exciting. Also, another option would be working with the Lancaster County Conservancy on carbon offsets. Their land holdings are about 1,700 acres, and if that were approved as a carbon offset for 5 years, that would offset the emissions that we require as well. So there are community partners that can be helping with some of this. I also want to mention this environmental rights piece of our state constitution, and I believe that this really underlines some of the call to action that this plan has in it. So Pennsylvania is among only 3 states that actually have a piece in their constitution like this. And it says the people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, and historic and aesthetic values of the environment. Pennsylvania's public natural resources are the common property of all people, including generations yet to come. And so what's next? I'm really hoping adoption of the resolution, but beyond that, we have some internal organizing to do, and we've actually already begun that, working with Mayor Sirachi, Chief of Staff Jess King, and also our Department Director Christopher Delfs, and we've been looking at next steps for this plan implementation. And certainly reporting back to the community and sharing our progress is an important part of this. So I just want to say thank you for this opportunity and for your time especially. I appreciate the service that you provide to our community and for the thoughtful consideration that you've given this plan. I'm also especially grateful to the many organizations, the staff, and our interns who have contributed to this effort, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you, Douglas. Do you have any other comments, Counselor?
I did not actually.
Okay.
It's a very thorough presentation.
Yes, it is, unsurprisingly. Any other council comments? Douglas, again, thank you for all the work and thank you for recognizing everybody for work that got done. I mean, I think I'm acknowledging the obvious for people in the room, but this is really, really an exciting thing to show leadership, show what small cities can do. And I love that we continually seem to be a city where instead of just saying, well, we're too small, what can we do? We do the exact opposite. I'm like, no, let's do everything, see if we can do it, and we'll do our best, and then let people follow us, which is fantastic. I also love, specifically right near the end of the booklet that you gave us, where there's really a focus on, city leadership and the green team working with the broader community, because the reality is leadership changes. Politicians change, administrators change, but a good plan that's woven into the community is going to last, and that's the key to this whole thing. So that's really, really exciting that this is thorough. It's meant to be woven in the community, so regardless who sits up here or who sits in the mayor's office or who's in administration, the goal is to get a plan like this so woven into the fabric that why would anybody want to change it in the future? So that's a really, really cool approach. So thank you sincerely for bringing this to our attention. It's appreciated. If there are no other comments from council, are there any comments from members of the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ballantyne.
Aye.
Mr. Gapera.
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Now have your mandate, sir. Please feel free and save all of us one city at a time. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We will move on to Administration Resolution number 52. Yes, that does deserve a hand. You are correct. I thought it was a little egotistical if I started to clap on something I just voted on, so I was waiting for somebody else to start, and then I'd be happy to join in. Again, thank you to everybody for it. It's going to be a long process, but it's so exciting to be leaders and show the nation the way. We'll move on to Administration Resolution number 52, 2019, reducing the boundaries of the tax increment financing district.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster approving an amendment to the Lancaster City Northwest Gateway Project Plan approved by the Council of the City of Lancaster, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, on July 24, 2007, reducing the boundaries of the tax increment district.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Councilor Smith-Waddell.
Great. So as I said, we would be discussing this a few brief minutes later. Marisol, would you just give the assembled public and council a walkthrough of what we discussed in the committee meeting in a little more detail? Thank you.
So the tax increment financing district was created in 2008, and it was created to encourage development in the northwest area of our city. The TIF works by identifying the properties in that area and their assessment value. The taxes that are generated off of that is returned to the city to pay on a bond that RACL holds. And that bond was used to build the Queen Street garage. And at that time, when we sought out the bond, the bank requested that we project the tax revenues in that area. And when we did that, those development projects have now come to fruition. And what we've realized is that we're actually generating more tax revenue than what we need to pay on that bond. So as a result, we're asking to decrease that district in order to allow the rest of that area. Mr. Harris, do you have a copy of the map? So the current district is outlined in that thin purple. And so by releasing all of that and really keeping it into the turquoise boundaries, which I don't think shows very well here on this map, but it would be kind of along Harrisburg Avenue, all to the left, my left. So by keeping that area, we realize that we're going to generate sufficient revenue to continue to pay on the bond. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. It seemed pretty straightforward to us, but yeah, thank you, Marisol.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Marisol. Any other,
Stick around for a second in case anybody has
Sure.
a burning question. But
any questions from council members? I just want to thank Marisol for the briefing earlier and also for the administration's willingness to be forward-thinking in these types of things, because it does open up one of the things, I'm not sure if you mentioned or not, but opening up the opportunity for some of the businesses in that area to look for other forms of financing, which is terrific because sometimes they're limited by being in the TIF. So just giving businesses the opportunity to be as nimble as they can be is always a good thing. So appreciate it.
Sure, you're welcome.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any comments from the public? You're welcome. I hope it's related to this, but I'm always willing to say you're welcome. If no other comments, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ballantyne.
Aye.
Mr. Gripera.
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waydell.
aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Move on to the second public comment period. Open for comment about issues or concerns that were not on tonight's agenda. I again ask that you limit the duration of your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak this evening? Sure, sir. If you don't mind, we'll go right to you next. Sure, no, come on up. If you could just share your name and the street you live on, no need for the number. If you could just stay on here at the podium, that'd be great. And if you could limit your comments to 3 minutes, sir, we'd appreciate it.
My name is Dave Kinsey. I live on Green Street.
Thank you, sir.
I'm a self-employed landscape contractor.
Thank you.
You've begun something very important here tonight. And it's a good time to be excited, and I'm happy for you. I'm happy for us, but I'm also concerned. There's a lot of misinformation in the environmental field. There's a lot of facts and figures thrown around that don't necessarily prove up. There's lots of times people mean to accomplish one thing and something else is what accomplished. We are on the cusp in this city. We have an opportunity to solve a lot of problems that are going to help a lot of other communities solve the same problems. We are out in the forefront, and you all deserve to be thanked for that. And having that vision is important. I am asking you to try expand your vision outside of the box. Climate change is not just caused by greenhouse gases. It's a very complex thing. And environmental quality of life does more to buffer climate change, and you have a lot of that in your plan. That's great. And that you're willing to look for opportunities for business to be nimble. You're willing to look for opportunities for people to succeed in communities. That's real important. And I ask that you grab a hold of that with every one of these issues and watch for the result. Make sure you're getting the result, not just the feel-good moment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you sharing. Sir, if you want to come on up. Again, if you could just share your name and your street. Hi.
Hi, my name is Monty Corse, Locust Street.
Thank you, sir.
On September 4th, there was a 911 call placed to the police department When they arrived, they directly started discriminating against me because I'm an honorably discharged, disabled, 100% service-connected disabled vet. I have a recording. On our NVR at the store, I have a thorough recording where I'm my brother-in-law, Mario Naranjo's power of attorney, legally documented in the clerk's office of this county. He turned around and told Mario he needed to fire me as his power of attorney because I am a 100% service-connected disabled vet with no job. Now, if that isn't clear discrimination, I'd like to know what is. Our lawyer is going to have a copy of this. He's already fuming. And this officer, Graysick, was not the only officer doing this that showed up. They refused to take police reports when an assault, criminal trespassing, removal for the second time of a survey monument, and aided and abetted the survey monument to be removed from the scene. Again, not documented. I'm asking this council to do the right thing, step up, and look into the police department. If you guys want to see the video, you're more than welcome to come to 158 South Queen Street. I will open up the NVR and let you watch the whole incident, and or upon your request, I'll be more than happy to take and download it onto a thumb drive for you. Now, if I seem upset, put yourself in my place. I honorably served this country. And to be discriminated against because I served this country and suffered injuries while serving this country, yeah, I'm upset. And rightfully so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it.
If you could, excuse me, if you would not mind, please leaving your name and phone number with the clerk at the end, I would appreciate that so that we can follow up.
Not a problem.
And thank you for your service, sir. We do appreciate it. Is there any other public comments this evening? Yes, sir. If you could share your name and your street.
Sure. Kenneth Mabey, South Queen Street.
Thank you.
I was the guy he was talking about that was assaulted. I got a text message from the store owner that a construction company was illegally pouring concrete on their property and had removed the survey pin. I am a member of the press, so I went to document it and record it. During that, I had my camera phone slapped in my face by one of the construction workers, and then I was assaulted by one of the daycare employees. When Graysick came, he was confrontational. He did not try to calm the situation down. He actually, when he first got out of his car, pointed his billy club at me in a threatening manner when I had said it was him and told me to shut up. So I just kind of sat there, and at that point I was like, oh, okay, so I'll turn my camera back on if this is the way it's going to be. And I got the whole thing on recording, so if you want it, I can give it to you. We tried going the proper channels and filing a complaint and talking to internal affairs about it and everything. I was told by Lieutenant Stoltzfus that since he was allowed to record the meeting between us, but I wasn't, which I find appalling that he can record a meeting. We're both agreeing to it being recorded, but only he's allowed to record it. He said that he would refuse to take my comment and my statement if I continue to record and threaten to walk out. And I have that on video as well. Something needs to be done, man. I tried contacting, I asked him who his superior was. He said the chief. I tried contacting the chief. I have this all documented. Nothing, I have not received a call back. So, and now I actually have a disorderly conduct charge from all that too, where I have everything documented and videoed, where the officer outright lies on the citation saying that I said things that I never said, and also omitting a major part that the person made contact with me first. You can't make contact with someone and then claim to be the victim. I was minding my own business. They may now I have to go fight a disorderly conduct charge because I talked back to her because she initiated contact with me trying to start a problem. There's something wrong with your police department. You guys really do need to fix it. And if not, then I'm going to have to go above you guys, which I just want it fixed.
I appreciate it, sir. And the contact info that was shared, is that similar contact info, or would yours be separate from?
Well, I mean, I can do it with him, but I'll give you mine as well.
Yeah, if you could share it with Mr. Harrison, and I will follow up from there. Thank you for, appreciate it. Yep. Anyone else this evening? Mr. Brown, good evening.
Terry Brown, 233 West Chestnut Street. I have 4 incidents with the police. I like the police well and good, but I got 4 incidents. Number 1 incident, I had a theft, a person who comes at apartment 1, still in package. I had a police report about that there. She took the stuff and left. That's 1. The police took everything down, but nothing went down. Number 2, I had a police incident and another theft, apartment 8. And that's the worst thing. I had about 3 against him. Still, it took about $200-some worth of stuff. All thing the police officer says, there's no camera, so I can't find no charges. I said, so what you're trying to say, I got paid the money and it's over and done with. So I should never even call you in the first place. That's common sense there. And say, then the second, then third is number 8. And the 4th is number 8. Now, I just had a last number 8 with yesterday. When a person just come, just jumped in my face for no reason at all, period, because I said somebody came up and just took a dresser that I just brought $25, took it down and broke it up over something dumb and stupid. Then he didn't jump. I call the police, and the police always says, I say, I'm tired, going to my landlord. My landlord just go through one ear and roll out the other ear. He got 7, 8 people in there, and then just drawing up worse and worse, and it ain't doing nothing. So the only step I can do, if I go to the city, I don't know what the city going to do. If I go to the mayor, I tried to go to the mayor 1 time, the mayor wasn't in. I go the second time, the mayor's not in. I said, when do the mayor come? I thought the mayor was supposed to be doing on Thursdays. She's got certain times on Thursdays. So I just said, okay. And now I might go through another. Now, I got 4 straight incidents with Electric City Police. 1 for $200-some taken, a dresser gets taken, mostly all, and a theft. Everything is like stolen. A theft taken a law for a theft by deception, and to them, it's like go to one ear, roll the other ear, go to your landlord. I know what my landlord going to say. He ain't going to say nothing. So next step we're going to do is me, because I almost killed a person in number 6 for spitting on me. Now, the police didn't do nothing about that there. But I said, if anybody go and spit on somebody, hey, you should do something about it. Now, the police did something to a female when a female did, but every time when a male calls, it's like, it's a whole different ballgame. But please, do something for Electric City Police when somebody do something wrong to them bad, or I will hurt the next person, the guy spit on me, I'm going to take him out. All right,
Thank you for sharing, Mr. Brown.
Bye.
Have a good evening. Any other public comments? Hearing none, we'll have the report of the mayor.
Thank you, President Reichenbach. So I'm thrilled that Council has adopted the City of Lancaster's Municipal Climate Action Plan tonight. Thank you. This has been a labor of love and a lot of time and commitment, and just clearing some hurdles that were unexpected. As we've seen, global efforts regarding climate change this week are putting pressure on local, state, and national governments to do more to recognize the science that tells us that we do have a finite amount of time to address climate change and take it seriously enough to make changes in our operations and policies. And if you didn't see Greta Thunberg's entire remarks, it's only about 5 minutes, you definitely need to watch them. We are indeed listening. So this is the city's next big step in that direction, and to take responsibility for our own contributions to climate change and do everything we can to mitigate those impacts by also holding the banner high for our sister cities in Pennsylvania and pushing our leaders in Harrisburg and Washington to a higher standard, or at least to get on the same page, pushing in the same direction. And we're also really grateful for all the community partners that have participated in this. And if you would like to participate in climate action here in Lancaster on this Friday from 3:30 to 6:30 at Binns Square, there will be the Sunrise Movement is having a climate action event. And directly connected to this is the next step of the implementation with the active transportation plan. As many of you have seen, Walnut Street milling, paving, and striping work is underway. For most of the length of Walnut, this includes the first city-wide rollout of a parking protected bike lane. The first time ever. And just to say that the bike lane is next to the curb, followed by a row of parked cars, followed by 2 travel lanes, followed by another row of parked cars, followed by the other curb and sidewalk. We are going to, as of this Friday at 5 p.m., the bike lane on the east and west sections of Walnut will be open. This follows the series of 3 public meetings we held over the summer, multiple news articles, and door-to-door communications with residents in affected areas to communicate ideas, hear concerns, and share information. The center portion from Plum to Water will be complete in about 2.5 weeks. This, again, is a really big step in our citywide bicycle network and our goal to increase bicycle safety and ridership as part of our Safe Streets priority in the strategic plan. And last, 2 updates from public safety. We're very excited to welcome the new police social worker, Leilani Tran, to the team. Many of you have heard about Leilani. She is in full swing in her position. Planning, as you know, for this position has been underway for over a year and fits within our strategic plan, strong neighborhoods, and sound government objectives to make sure that we are effectively responding to concerns and needs within our community, improving relationships between residents and our public safety departments as well. Our objective to have an in-house social work expertise is to address those incidents that stem from mental health, addiction, and other issues that have social worker underpinning, recognizing that our police are many things, but social workers, they are not. Leilani will help people in crisis make referrals to local service providers, establish connections with neighborhood leaders, identify needs, and help to craft initiatives that respond and educate police officers and the community at large. To add to it, Leilani is from Lancaster City, a graduate of Millersville, and bilingual. Please help us welcome her when you see her around town. And last, we learned today that our fire department received a recognition that 100% of our fire personnel are credentialed at a professional fire standard level that is recognized and validated by the Pennsylvania Fire Commissioner's Office. We are one of only 39 departments across the entire Commonwealth to have achieved this standard and are the largest city in PA to have met this standard. Congratulations to our Fire Bureau and its leader, Chief Scott Little. My report.
Thank you, Mayor. Report of the President of Council, just briefly, some of you were in attendance today at a ceremonial demolition party, I would probably say, for the annex property in Ewell Plaza. It's just one more step in what has been a very long process, but hopefully will end up being a fruitful process of the Lancaster Public Library being in Ewell Plaza. I think the mayor had mentioned it briefly and her words were articulate. I don't want to try to rephrase them, but just the importance of that library being an anchor to Ewell Plaza and making sure that once that project is done, that everyone across the city and our community feels welcome at that library is going to be priority number one. It's going to be a beautiful space, and we just want to make sure that everybody across the city feels welcome to use the resources and to spend time there. So it's a really exciting day, just one more step in the process, but to just imagine people from across all areas of the city spending time with their families there in the future is something that's really exciting. So we will certainly keep you posted on the progress of that. Council comments?
Yes, Council President.
Sure.
I'd like to acknowledge our students here from Lancaster Catholic High and Millersville who are here tonight.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much for coming. You are always welcome, and Climate Action Plan is not a bad night to come to a meeting, so we're glad that you were here. That's terrific. Any other council comments? Hearing none, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.